So I'm audible too, right?
Yes, yes.
Sarita? Yes,
Sorry,
audible.
yes, Jenny. Yes, so sorry. Yes, yes, Jenny, can hear you. तो इसका लिंक अभी मैं
Yeah,
भेज
just setting up. I'm sending it to you.
ठीक है, आप भेज दोगे ना मुझे इस पे कि मैं भेजूं? Got it. So, Peer, if you would like to join the YouTube link, let us know, which is shared in the chat box. रूही, I think ये सबको नहीं गया है, एक सेकेंड. Yeah, this is the link in the chat box. We're inviting all observers to please move to the YouTube link and yeah, you can join us from there. Also, you guys can share the link with whoever you want to join since we're already live. So we are speaking as we speak. The video is being live streamed there. Okay, in the tech check, the YouTube link works. So yeah, we are just waiting for people to join in and we'll start soon. और अगर आपको शेयर करना है लिंक तो मैंने चैट बॉक्स पे डाल दिया है वो. जस्ट लेट मी नो इफ यू कैन एक्सेस इट और नॉट. I have done the tech check and it's accessible. And yeah, you can share it with whoever you want.
Yeah, so we'll just wait about a minute and then we can start. Okay, cool. I think we'll start as more people join in. And this will be this is a this will be live streamed on a YouTube channel. The link for that is there in the chat box. We can repeat that link for everybody who wants to share with their other community members and friends and networks. Sarada, you can copy paste that link again. Yeah, thank you so much.
मैंने
All
कर
right.
दी.
Great. So yeah, if folks can keep their camera on, I mean, the panelists at least, the speakers, then that would be great. So yeah, a very warm welcome to everyone here on this virtual press conference. Of course, we're doing a virtual one because it is more accessible to all of us, and in this day and age of organizing and hybrid uh, network, I think it was best way to do this without stressing on how to manage everything. And of course, when we are in person, we can do other things. So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'll quickly introduce the concept of this virtual press conference. Um, 1 second, hold on. Sorry.
Hello. So just taking over. I think there's a network error from Ruhi. So yeah, so welcome again, everyone, and thank you so much for joining. We still have some more journalists joining in. We have, I think, every one of our speakers over here, and we request participants who have registered and joined the link if they can move to the YouTube page, as this will be an interaction only with the speakers and the journalists. The other things are, I think these are the few guidelines I think that we just have. So the schedule of this is going to be that we're going to have a small round of introduction, and this is being live streamed on YouTube. It's going to remain also on YouTube after we've live streamed it, so it can be reshared and it will be shared with more people across the dialogues happening at COP29 in Baku, Azerbaijan right now. And yeah, we can then move towards there. So an introduction of HAC. My name is Sarita Fernandez, and I am the co-convener along with my colleague Ruhi Kumar. And we started the Heatwave Action Coalition in 2022. And we work on different intersections. The reason we started the coalition was to understand the different intersections of heat on, gender, on labor, on just like public health. And we really did not find anything or any dialogues that were happening on that end. This is largely how we started it. And we are having one of our first press conferences today uh, on the topic of COP29 and what's happening and what are the dialogues happening around heat waves in India. One of the reasons we are having this is because the ongoing dialogues on heat is largely focused on solutions and cooling systems, which again talk about mitigative and some adaptation options, but not necessarily on its very real interlinkages with everyday lives of people, with everyday lives of workers, and the other intersections it has. Some of the dialogues ongoing, which we are seeing coming out from COP29 in Azerbaijan, in Baku, Azerbaijan, is largely on the national action on cooling plans, where they're asking governments to develop sustainable cooling solutions. But again, not really speaking on the root cause of fossil fuel, proliferation in these spaces, and the expansion of fossil fuels, as we speak. So this COP has had the highest number of fossil fuel lobbyists. What I mean by fossil fuel lobbyists is people who are lobbying for fossil fuels to not phase out or to not phase out in the given timeline that scientists are warning us for. And Azerbaijan being also a petro state, we are seeing a lot of greenwashing and a lot of diminishing of the real conversations, addressing root causes of heat and rising heat waves across the globe. So this is a short introduction on why we are having this. I work on coastal and climate policy in India, and I've been seeing the intersections of heat waves on communities like coastal communities. I've been seeing the intersections on women's health and on labor in the rural and in the urban space. And Ruhi has been doing a lot of work around the communication and the campaigns around heat that are happening at the grassroots. So I would like to, ask Ruhi to give a small introduction about herself and the work that she does, and then we can open the panel up.
Thanks so much, Sarita. Sorry, I had to rush for something that I had to attend. But yeah, now we are here, and my name is Ruhi. I work in climate space in form of public engagement, policy, understanding, and deconstructing a lot of jargon, and with a lot of different groups from youth to gender groups. And my one of my main skills is trying to create coalitions like this with other volunteers and friends like Nitesh, Lakshay, Sarita, Sabha, Olencio, and Jenny. And it's been one of the main things last year we have seen in terms of heat and heat action is that unprecedented amount of health issues rising from especially in urban areas, but also not limited to urban areas. So today we wanted to keep all of that in mind, the conferences that is happening in Baku, but a lot of them seems to be just lip service. And here we are talking about our own intersections. And the format of this virtual press conference will be that each speaker can just quickly introduce themselves, and we will then go on to asking them about their work and how the intersections of heat and on gender, mental health, and youth and labor are very well connected on grassroots level. So I will just ask Lakshay if you can just introduce yourself, and then we can go in an order.
Yeah, thank you, Ruhi and Sarita, for organizing this. And yeah, I'm a 26-year-old climate justice and social justice campaigner, advocate, or whatever the term anyone prefers. But I'm living in Delhi and have been working on the intersection of climate change, youth, heat, and other vulnerable communities, including prison. Yeah, looking forward to the conversation ahead. Yeah.
Thanks, Lakshay. Sabha, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me here. My name is Sabha, and I work as a consultant with the Mariwala Health Initiative, which is a philanthropy, grant making, and capacity building organization which works on mental health and its intersections. And before this, I used to work in a Sangathan and stayed in rural Rajasthan for 5 years. So on this, it worked with labor rights, youth, access to the right to opportunity, education. Yeah, across those issues. Looking forward
Thanks,
to it.
Sabha. Olencio, can you introduce yourself as well? Thanks.
Yeah, this is Olencio Simoes. I'm the General Secretary of National Fish Workers Forum. So we work with the marine sector in terms of livelihood protection and environmental degradation. Thank you.
Thank you. Jenny, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, Rogi. So I'm Jenny. I'm an environmental lawyer. I work with campaigning and advocacy with Poolagi Nanbargal. So Poolagi Nanbargal, our work is quite comprehensive. We work from pollution to unsustainable development against them. And of course, in the recent time, the important climate issues that we are everyone is talking about. So, and on heat, we largely work with policy advocacy. So, yeah, I'll talk, further in the conversation. I'll just give you the, yeah.
Thank you, Jenny. Hi, Nitesh. Can you introduce yourself?
Hi everyone. Thank you so much, Ruhi and Saita, for having me and organizing this conference. So I'm Nitesh. I'm from Delhi. I work as a program officer with an organization called Jan Pehal. It's a Delhi-based non-profit organization We work with the distribution service sector workers with the perspective of their social security, livelihoods, dignity, rights. Under this, we have workers collective called Gig Workers Association, GIGWA, and Amazon India Workers Union. For GIGWA, I'm organizing the workers. It's an all India network advocating for platform-based gig workers by pushing for legislative reforms and ensuring access to social security schemes, particularly with the gig workers. With the IVU, it unites app-based and warehouse workers to address grievances and champion labor rights. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Nitesh. So, as everybody has introduced their intersection and stream of work overlapping with heat stress and climate impact, and keeping in mind that the kind of conversations that are happening year by year internationally on extreme events, whether it's at the COP, and of course, as the COP is going on right now. And there have been multiple coalitions and conversations on cooling impact and how basically cooling coalitions and looking at sustainable and equitable cooling coalitions. But the main point is that even with that, a lot of different groups and communities are not accounted for in terms of how heat stress actually impacts those communities, not just in the peak heat season, what we will consider in the Indian context, from March to July or August. But now, as we know, October heat was also going towards a certain trajectory, which is not expected. And of course, nighttime cooling temperatures. So I will start with a question to, on that note, to Jenny, who's working in Tamil Nadu, and talk a little bit about the work that they have done to lobby with the state government and on climate action plans and specifically on heat. So Jenny, would you like to just throw some light on what has been the situation in Tamil Nadu, especially because it's a coastal state, and what are the perceptions that, how the heat is perceived in northern parts of India and southern parts of India, but definitely in Tamil Nadu, and how your work is really pertinent at grassroots level for people living in Tamil Nadu across all sections.
Yes. So I was saying about Polaga, right? So when we work a lot with school students, college students, and we train youth through a program called CLP and Kalale Palli. We and also actually work with politicians. So um, by that we bring up a lot of changes. And of course with other CSOs. So the current status of Tamil Nadu, if we talk, the temperature, normally 25 to 30 degrees Celsius is must. It's an optimal temperature for a human being to thrive. But in Tamil Nadu, over 35 degrees Celsius itself is considered is not a good temperature for health or other any activities. So, but in the past few months, especially this April and May, the temperature was above 40 degree in many pockets. And it also reached 44 degrees Celsius in few districts. So which in few districts. So, and that too, it was not 1 or 2 days. It stayed on for over on and off for over 29-30 days. So which it's really hard for people, especially the vulnerable, who does not have access to cooling systems, and not just people. When we talk about it, it's the systems as a whole, the agriculture, the livestock that depends on it. So this was the current status in Tamil Nadu a few months before. And also when we talk about temperature, we have another issue in Tamil Nadu. It's a coastal, we have a stretch of about 1,076 kilometers. And also we have various streams of lakes and rivers. So along with temperature, the humidity adds. So, there is a condition called wet bulb condition. So wet bulb condition is nothing but, when there is so much temperature outside, our body tends to cool. Our body tends to sweat. So sweating is an process that is nothing but cooling the body. So when there is that humidity is high, so the optimal humidity is 60%. It's all right for Tamil Nadu, but when it crosses that 60 degrees Celsius, it's not a normal temperature for a humanity to thrive. So what happens is our body tends to shut down. So there was a case in Tamil Nadu. There was an air show that happened 2 or 3 months before. So a crowd of about 15 lakh people was expected in that venue. And the temperature, on the particular day was about 30 to 34 degrees Celsius. But because of the huge crowd, the temperature was even elevated plus 2 degrees Celsius. And also the wet bulb condition, because the humidity on that day was 74 degrees, 74 percentage. So, I was personally on the place, and I seen people falling down, from the temperature and the heat. It was really distressful to see that. And at the end of the day, about five people died. When the wet bulb condition evolves, it's not just the vulnerable people, the kid, or already ill people. It's the healthy people who even stay under shade or maybe under a tree. They tends to get sick, they tends to get ill. I'm sorry. 5 minutes. Yeah, I'm very sorry. So I was okay.
Not a problem at all.
Yeah. So yeah, this is the following this big disaster that happened in Tamil Nadu. The government came up, with all the initiatives from other CSOs and Poolagin Nanbargal. They came up with this notification which declared, we already had wildfire and thunder in the disaster, and now the Tamil Nadu government has recognized this heat wave as a state disaster. So the people who are going to be affected by this is going to be get help from the fund, not from the national fund but from the state fund. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the question to ask, Jenny. Tamil Nadu has declared that as a disaster, and my question to you would be that is a lead for other states to declare it as a disaster.
Yes.
Before we go on to other big promises, I think this one's a very critical one.
Yes,
So
it is important because the last year the global mean temperature reached a record high, from 1.6 degrees Celsius something between the 2023 April to last August. So the temperature is going to become worse, and especially for India, that it's going to be even worse. There are reports, including Lancet and McKinsey reports, that states that many pockets of India, especially the northern parts, are going to be, they are going to exceed the survivability limit. Yeah, that highlights the importance of cooling system. And also not just the coastal thing that I would like to highlight from Tamil Nadu. We also have a lot of mountains, hillocks. So, hillocks, they tend to absorb the heat, and in the night they reflect it back into the atmosphere. So even the night temperature is soaring. And recently I also did a survey. So in the survey, we realized, there were some points, and one of the important pointers, the the most around the 60 to 70% students, they have, the survey is very comprehensive. We received a reply from all the states of Tamil Nadu. So most of the kids, they have said that they the quality of sleep, around 60 to 70% people said the quality of sleep has come down, which in turn is going to show in their education and their regular life. And also another important point that we have noticed is um, um, most people, they don't know. Um, they have reduced the physical activity. That is about 80 to 90% of the people. It was, they just said, no, we don't go out, we don't exercise, we don't, play. So that might seem, I did not get it at first, but only then I realized, if they stop doing this, how they are going to be fit, how they are going to be physically healthy. It connects again with the emotional well-being of them. Yeah. So this is what I like to add.
Jenny, thanks for really highlighting that. And I think that's a great segue to Sabah, because your specific project, you're working as a consultant with Mariwala Health Initiative and looking at mental health and heat. And just Jenny just mentioned that lack of sleep is one of the, I mean, what are the side effects and big side effects, not just like a generic one. But I would, if you can highlight for us the work that you're doing and how this particular intersection is not even mentioned even in the big frameworks, no matter where it is. So yeah, over to you.
Right. Thanks so much, Ruhi, and thanks a lot, Jenny. Yeah, so as I said earlier, I work with Mariwala Health Initiative as a consultant, and as a consultant on research on the impact of heat stress on the mental health of workers in rural India, and particularly in Rajasthan, as we know, is one of the hottest states of India. And just a bit about kind of the lens of MHI, which is important to explain the research. I had mentioned it is philanthropy, grant making, and capacity building organization. The focus is mental health, but also the intersections of mental health. So not necessarily the biomedical framing of what we think as mental health, but the focus on making mental health services accessible to marginalized individuals and communities, and what are the psychosocial factors that are affecting whatever intersection we're working on, particularly marginalized communities. So partners worked with Adivasi, Dalit communities, victims of violence, LGBTQIA plus communities, farmers, youth, labor, right? And many other intersections I'm missing. Why that is important is why are we then looking at climate, and in this case, heat and mental health, right? So the lens is this, that both extreme heat and mental health disproportionately affects the well-being of people on the margins. This we know. So we believe that we need to look at climate change and heat, because climate change, we think of these disasters that happen, cyclones, tornadoes, all of these things, because of the evident devastation that occurs after it. And so we think, okay, maybe mental health effects of the communities there, but heat is more insidious than that. And heat, it's not, I mean, all of these things, climate change and heat is a social justice issue. It intersects with indigenous rights, just disability justice. It intersects with the labor rights lens, human rights, and it is a mental health issue. The ability to, say, turn on cooling, we're talking about, right? And COP is talking about who has the ability and the privilege to turn on the AC, access cooling, choose cars over bicycles, even go get your heat stroke checked at a medical space or a hospital, and other lifestyle changes. This all requires privilege for informal sector workers. And perhaps Nitesh will build on the urban angle, but even in rural areas, because rural India is also marginalized on the margins even more. So many of these informal sector workers, they come from Dalit, OBC, Adivasi communities. They have to do long hours of manual labor, toiling in the heat. Work conditions are what they are because there is no other choice. So they have, and this is where the structure comes in. So it's not just, we can't just say that, okay, heat is the cause of these psychosocial issues and mental health degradation. No, it's a structural issue. And heat is deepening it. As I said, it's an insidious, it's insidious, making it worse insidiously. Taking downtime is not an option for many of these communities, right? And are people on the margins involved in making these policies? No. So anyway, so let me talk a bit about my research. We interviewed about 100 people from across different marginalizations, women, youth, persons with work-induced chronic illnesses, silicosis in the mining areas, people from Dalit, Adivasi, OBC castes, and Muslim identities also, and people who work in NREGA, which is the National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, which are mainly women in Rajasthan who work on these sites. A lot of workers responded after working hours in extreme heat, things like, I'm just going to list out a few: irritation, easy to anger, taking decisions in anger, deregulation of impulse control, lack of care of one's own physical health, tension, really discomfort. This is an important one that almost everyone who was a male said that to go out, to increased its consumption of intoxicants, and most of the time alcohol. Um, most of the men we interviewed said that we have to mentally prepare to go out and work in this heat. There is no other option. There is no other work in rural India. So manual labor is mainly what they do, or farming. So then what happens is violent behavior is a lot of what women spoke about. Violent language, inability to think about the future. Like, this is our life, we have to accept it the way we is. Helplessness as one's own situation. Okay, there are many things, I won't list all of them. Just very quickly to end, and then we can talk later on. Is these are there's an example of the psychosocial and structural factors that are prevalent, that should be prevalent on the discourse on heat, and is you can see from this example I'm going to tell you. No, not so the heat action plans. Even there's even a rural heat action plan for Rajasthan, but they all, even if they give suggestions for quote unquote vulnerable communities, who are these vulnerable communities? One sweep, you can just say, okay, these are the suggestions. All vulnerable communities have equal access to this, and the job is done. This is aside from the point who is financing it, all of that. We're not going to go into that. But that in itself is an issue, because all communities across these marginalizations have differential impacts. So someone from a Bhil community in Rajasthan who we interviewed, a Bhil youth, he was about 18. He had worked for the last 5 years in stone breaking, and it's one of the most back-breaking works. And he lives in a hamlet far away from the main village, where you have more access to water. They have access to different water. They can't access the water that the other castes drink. So spatially discriminated, little access to education because of this discrimination, because of financial issues, and therefore opportunities of work are extremely limited, more limited to this community. There is no other option, and therefore you have to toil in long hours of manual labor. Now, this is why the importance of intersectional approaches, you can't see things in silos. And this is what we want to kind of put out to the government, to philanthropies, to organizations working on the ground. If you're working, this is an intersection that must be built in to what we're looking at, because it affects all communities. As I said, maybe differentially, maybe someone's going to talk about how it affects women, gender is a different angle, trans communities, so this is the nuance we have to bring into the conversation. We have to acknowledge that there is a structural inequality that is present, and that impacts the conversation on mental health and all these other intersections. It impacts heat, the conversation on heat.
Yeah.
So that's what we wanted to kind of talk about. But other things I'll bring in maybe in the question answer session. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sabha. I think it's a very important point that how largely, like even in climate space, eco anxiety is one aspect that's highlighted, which is of course like grief from knowing that people are losing a lot of important environmental critical biodiversity zones, but mental health and intersection of heat and other slow burning events is also not really explored, and we don't even have that much data. The survey that you, Jenny, and even we have done on women's groups, just to understand on well-being, that is something that really needs to be highlighted, and at a whether it's a regional or global level. But on that note, I will go with Lakshay, who is here as a representative of youth groups working on climate and social justice. Lakshay, in your experience and knowing of the groups that you're working with, could you just let us know, like, especially with reference to Delhi and your work on heat and the youth groups, and also whatever you've seen from the last few climate conferences, because I know you've been monitoring them closely in terms of what the policies are and what the statements are. So I'd love to hear from that on you.
Yeah, so just caveat that I do not myself want to be a representative, or I'm not a representative of youth groups or any youth groups. I'm here as an individual who works in climate justice and with young people. Uh, so yeah, No one needs a representation, in my opinion. But like moving to the main essence of the conversation, I'm someone like a 26-year-old living in East Delhi, and this year, like entire nation was facing the deadly heat waves, and everyone almost like accepted that climate change is happening for the first time almost. I think everyone was talking about heat action plan, and in this whole process, whole drama, there was a missing piece, which was voices of the people who are affected really, which are like youth, women, workers, uh, and rural areas, uh, people who already have some kind of medical issues with them. But it's not talked about really. For example, like Delhi almost has like more than 2 lakh students going to colleges, and uh, we don't have really proper fans in classes, let alone air conditioned classrooms. Like most of the Delhi university I'm talking about, not the private universities, obviously. There are no common spaces in most colleges where young people can just sit, relax, or use it as a place for leisure activities. But during heat waves, that becomes very important because you can't really just roam around on the streets or just sit somewhere. You can't. Otherwise, the only option left to the young people is to just sit at their homes, where they probably might have a fan or an air condition if they are privileged enough, like me. But uh, in all this, the major challenge is also traveling to the colleges, which with like no facilities of cool drinking water or proper infrastructure in place while waiting. Uh, for my work purposes, I have to meet people very often, and in normal temperatures, it I use parks, different parks in Delhi, which give ample of like good opportunities to meet people and see and be in the nature also. But you can't sit in parks in heat. That is like just we can't really talk or anything in that kind of environment. Um, so we have to otherwise spend the money in cafes or any place where we can just get air conditioned. So extreme heat has significant health impacts overall on the population globally, but in countries in the global south, which have the extreme impact of heat, uh, causes it to be significantly worse. I would say so because when we are talking about global mean increase in the temperature for all over the globe, it represents a temperature of 35 degrees Celsius, probably in the global north, which is very high for them. But here we are talking about almost 50 degrees Celsius, which is almost like inhumane, where we can't really function in any way, scientifically, logically speaking. It will have like human body will be beyond stress. There would be exacerbating cardiovascular diseases and other kind of mental health issues, as Sabha also mentioned. Uh, Obviously some population are more exposed and are likely to be more vulnerable because of the socioeconomic indicators and face increased risk. So where like Nitesh will be speaking about the manual labor, young people, older people, infants, athletes, and overall one of the major intersections in all this is also uh, the poverty aspect, where they don't have kind of resources, even the proper shade or fan in their house to survive in this. Gender is also one of the very important sections to work like, which gives a problem in this all this area. But regarding the COP process or the climate negotiations and how heat has been playing a role in this, uh, the first time uh, heat actually came in this whole conversation substantially was last year in COP28, where in like UAE's presidency we had uh, health as a proper thematic day in the whole of 2 weeks, and in that health perspective we had different parts of heat, particularly heat resilience and how heat and health correlates. And there is a growing consensus in the world where that climate change and health has a proper nexus. So yeah, just like couple of two things. Finally, where COP28 played a very landmark issue, a landmark in a way. One was the declaration between climate and health, on declaration and climate and health, where like almost 148 countries were there, but uh, India was still missing from the list. Uh, this year, all of the next upcoming year, all the countries will be submitting new national development determined contributions, but uh, it it remains to be seen whether health comes in that or not. Uh, yeah. Second is obviously the global cooling pledge that was launched about sustainable cooling and how we can reduce that, reduce the impact of like harmful substances. Uh, but in all this thing, the major concern or the major stake is about the finance, which is not talked about much. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Lakshay. I think this COP is deemed to be a climate finance COP, is what the news has been everywhere about where how the money is going to be raised, who's going to have access, and who's going to use it. So I think that's a very good point. And as the COP wraps up, we'll know more about the final day pledges and where that money is coming and going. But I'll hand it over to Sarita to talk about more on the perspective of the labor and lens with Nitesh and Olencio, and then we can move on to the questions. Sarita,
Yes.
over to
Yeah, very quickly, we will open the questions for the journalists too, but these were some of the pioneering questions that we wanted to also like ask to our panelists here. So, hi Nitesh, and one of the things that I wanted to ask was, when heat waves, became a word, and I remember 2022, 2021, we were seeing these words coming up when the IMD was releasing heat wave alerts in several parts of North India, South India, and other, Eastern, everywhere actually, across India, I would say. Um, there was no mention on labor, right? The first thing that people thought was, okay, this is going to probably be like a climatic issue, a health issue, or we're just aware like any other, IMD alert. This is just another alert. And also, there's a lot of stereotypes on IMD alerts. In Mumbai, whenever they say it's going to be a red alert day for monsoon, it is a very sunny and beautiful day. So there's a lot of also mistrust on the data coming out, from our agencies, and obviously they also do, a good job at predicting it, but it's the weather. So when this started coming out and these conversations were happening, I think nobody spoke about labor. There was no mention about how are people going to work or how are different groups, including children, college students, much of which was covered by Lakshay and the others panelists here by Jenny and Sabha. Um, on how are people going to cope. And I think the first time there was any mention was when laborers and people from the Amazon warehouse workers or the gig workers actually started demanding that they do require some help. The least being that there could be a surcharge, in the rate at which they had to deliver food or like participate in the gig economy. So I just wanted to understand also, it took so much time for us to see the linkage between labor and heat, and for government action to come across. When we see the same, lag at the COP, where it is still being spoken at, a very siloized issue, something that needs to be mitigated and not really adapted towards, and requires government support. What are your thoughts when you see these negotiations going on, and what would you like to share at such negotiations from a labor union perspective in India?
Sure. First of all, thank you so much, other panelists and Sarita, especially you, to mentioning the labor. I mean, the word labor is very underrated, I guess. Then, if you see the larger domain, you'd see health, livelihoods, and other things, other thematics. But labor is something which connects everything, what I feel with my observation. And while working on the ground, you can't run away from labor, right? Everywhere you go, you find labor, right? Urban, rural, and etc. It's everywhere at every walks of life. While working with the Amazon warehouse workers and platform-based workers like Zomato, Swiggy, Ola, Uber, etc., when the heat happened this year, as you all know that it recorded the highest number of numbers on the meters. And it was spoken well around different platforms and etc. And that's how we are building the campaigns. As you all know that how the heat concern have came up with the Amazon warehouse workers, where a particular warehouse workers, in the stowing department in the immense heat conditions, asked to take an oath, right? That they won't take washroom breaks, toilet breaks, water breaks, etc. And and they have to meet the targets, right? And the targets are very unrealistic for these workers. And the recent survey that we did with Uni, IVU, Amazon Inter Workers Union, we had a survey as well regarding that how the workers reports high pressure to meet unrealistic targets, where 81% saying the productivity targets were either difficult or very difficult to achieve. In addition, 87% of warehouse workers stated they were not given enough time to use the restrooms, and only 19.8% of workers considered the work environment is safe. When I say work environment, obviously the heat is the main issue, right? And I see the issue of urban workers, one that I'm working with warehouse workers as a backend, and the delivery workers as a front end, because once you order something in a tab, in an app, the particular package gets packed, scanned, or whatever, and that particular package have story to tell that on every step that worker is getting exploited, right? And to the delivery partner as well. For example, um, these workers, especially the gig workers, have been facing issues like uh, like these workers are exposed to extreme heat conditions without adequate safeguards like rest periods, hydration access, or workplace modifications. And we are also making sure that when these delivery workers are on the field, how much issue they are facing. We just see one issue where the
Hitesh,
delivery
can you hear
worker.
me? Yeah, sorry, I was just checking, like, yeah, if anybody could mute themselves because there is a cross this thing. Yeah, sorry, go on.
So yeah, I was saying about the delivery workers, right? So these workers are on the ground, like they are under the heat. They are different issues. I mean, the phone is their livelihood. It's getting heated up, right? They are not allowed to enter the gates of the society. They have to stand, and work is and time is money. Discrimination is there also with the t-shirts they're wearing and on all of that. And for us as a labor activist and organizer of these workers, heat is something we literally pushed on the larger domain, especially writing to different authorities. We wrote to labor and employment advisory to states, and they have given also advisory to states and union territories to mitigate the effects of extreme heat on workers. And also currently we are also working with Zomato in developing well-being framework as well, where we are working on different themes and elements of physical, financial, social, and mental and professional. One of the themes that we are working. So in that well-being framework, we are also asking to put rest points with water access, weather appropriate gear, and health notification for delivery partners during extreme heat. And health and safety is also a concern for us, and we have made sure that in this framework, there should be regular health checkups, first aid availability, and insurance coverage to mitigate heat-related risk. And worker also have to face different kind of expenses, like vehicle expenses as well. So we also thinking it should be going into the well-being framework, right? So why I'm mentioning all that? I'm mentioning all that is because these issues are not just particularly one aggregator concern. This should be the different, right? Because these warehouses are made on the barren lands with the thin shade and all, getting heat. And we're seeing just one kind of work, but there's also unpaid work goes in the home, right? These particular warehouses are extracting the surplus value from the workers. At the end of the day, they don't have particular energy to do that. What's the main commonality? Heat, right? Soaking all the energies from their bodies. And we are pushing how these issues, especially the labor and climate and heat, should be discussed, and have broader narrative of heat stress as public health emergency that exacerbates inequality, disproportionality affecting marginalized and informal sector workers. The need for collective action from policy makers, employers, and civil society is paramount in this. And as for COP, right? I mean, it's also important to understand that while universal protection is discussed, gig and platform-based worker who often operate in informal setups are not explicitly prioritized. Um, this and they are the risks because they're in the field, they're on the ground, right? And they are the most vulnerable segment of the workforce that is disproportionately affected by extreme weather like heat waves, because you have seen the articles in the news that we have pushed it to the international national media that happened with the Amazon workers and gig workers. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks, Nitesh. And that's like a great segue to Olencio, who is also a union leader for fish workers, specifically small scale fish workers in India, which includes fishermen, fisherwomen, the laborer groups, among the fish workers of India and other intersections they have. So I wanted to also ask Olencio that when we come from, the gig workers and Amazon India workers still have, the Amazon or the Swiggy or the Zomato to ask accountability from. They can also have, because there is some sort of infrastructure, there is some sort of visibility also available to at least kickstart something. But when it comes to, a sector like the completely and totally informal fish worker sector, which is completely labor run, which has very few or very blurred regulations around labor rights. What is the impact that they face when it comes to heat waves? And what have you been observing with the fish workers you've been working in this whole summer of this year? If you would like to share some of those thoughts.
Yeah, so basically, fish workers are there is no regulation on it, so they're completely exposed. But what I'm trying to say is, I want to highlight in this forum that what we should be doing to address this issue, because it's a burning issue. And we have seen the Union Ministry of Health and Family Welfare has reported that there is 733 heat stroke deaths, 40,000 heat strokes. And the most importantly, they are saying that 37 cities have surpassed 45 degrees Celsius. So I think we are already into panic, and I do not know why government is not looking to address this. And we've known that already 40% of the Indians don't have access to drinking water. We've seen 21 Indian cities are going to run groundwater. We have seen 2 lakh people dying because of uh, water availability. We have seen that the coastline, 33% of the coastline has already been eroded. And we have seen that more than 16 major rivers on the verge of destruction. I mean, they are drying up, and all these things are, and we've seen as per NASA that 12 coastal cities of a country by 2050 will be underwater, almost 3 feet. And since 2015, we have seen how Sagarmala projects are being implemented into the coastline and into our rivers. 111 rivers have been nationalized. We have seen how the CRZ notification from 500 is reduced to 50 meters. We have seen, uh, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can
Can
hear
you
you.
hear me? Yeah. We have seen how the CRZ has been reduced from 500 meters to 50 meters. We have seen how the ports are privatized and given to Adani. We have seen all other drafts which is coming in, like the Blue Economy Policy 2021, Indian Port 2022, and there are several other projects which are coming. UNESCO sites have been destroyed, like the Western Ghats, which caters to 9 national tiger reserves, 20 parks, state wildlife sanctuary. So I think it's very for us, and since 29 is all about climate change, I don't think there is mitigation or at least a sense of guilt understanding that India is heading toward a major disaster. Not only we are losing the ocean temperature is rising, we are facing droughts, cyclone, and add on this, we are going to have multiple issues. How do we address this issue and how do we create awareness, enlighten our government to review the projects which have been proposed by this government, which is not even not even taking environment and, and how do we restore what is gone? I think if you want to stop this heat wave, we have to address the core issues. Climate destruction is already taking place in rapid pace. So how do we restore what we have lost? I mean, the rivers are drying up, the coastline is going off. So how do we restore? I think this is the most important thing which I have seen maximum what is done at post mitigation measures. I've seen certain areas in Goa like the cyclone centers have been built, and I think that is happening in most of the cities of country. But what do we do to stop a cyclone? You know, that is I think somewhere we have not able to address nor a government is able to understand the issue of climate change and sooner now or later if you don't start I think then from 45 degrees I don't know where it will go and already the previous speaker Jenny said that the temperature really increased to 1.6 degree. We know that after in years, every 9,000 years, there's only 1 degree rise in global temperature, but now it's gone to 1.6 and it would cross 2 according to scientists. So once it cross 2.5, then we have nothing to say. We will not have Zoom's meeting, it will be all under out of control. So I think that is important, which need to be highlighted. And obviously, with respect to Fisher, this are, we are going to be the main stakeholders, we can say main impact people of climate change, and that is already happening. Our houses are underwater. We are not getting fish. There is cyclone every month. There's fish every week, and yes, it goes on.
Thank you, Olencio. Thank you. And for the speakers, Olencio is speaking from Brazil, which is why his internet is a bit here and there. So yes, thank you so much for joining in still. And okay, I think I and Ruhi are done. As conveners, we wanted to ask these very pressing questions. We'll open it up to any of the press that would like to ask the speakers any questions. You can directly unmute yourselves and ask them questions or raise your hand on the Zoom options, whichever works. Yeah, please feel free to go ahead and do that. Jashwata, Kavya, Meena, Peer, if any of y'all can hear me and if my internet is good. Yeah.
Um, my question is directed to generally everybody. Whoever wants to answer can. Oh, let me introduce myself first. I am Jashwata, and I'm a journalist from Question of Cities. We report on cities from the lens of climate change, and I want to know from the speakers, what is the future of heat wave mitigation, adaptation that we can expect? One. And two, what do we need to demand for as citizens?
Sarita, should I go? Um,
Yeah,
should I?
yeah, please. Yeah, and also anybody from the panel can also chip in and answer this question.
Yeah, so I think thanks, Ashweta, for the question. I suppose the main question lies that if there is going to be, we have heat action plans, we have clean air plans, we have many plans and policies in place. The key always lies that one is implementation, and also when we have so many plans together, does it make sense not to integrate a lot of the planning rather than doing it separately? For example, in terms of like what if we look at Sabah's work and mental health and vulnerability, then how does that get incorporated with Ministry of Health or Well-being or Children and that sort of high level integration? So I don't know, maybe Sabah, do you want to add anything, or Jenny, Hitesh, on this particular question? Because it's more the one is policy, but then how do you incorporate that at you know as she asked, like, what's the future of heat mitigation look like?
Yeah, and I want to add one more caveat to that, and which is that what is it going to take for these plans to get incorporated and sort of amalgamated with each other and not looked at in silos? Because the reason you guys sort of put this uh, conference together is so that we talk about heat beforehand, so that there is some action that is taken, right? So, what is it going to take for it to actually become reality?
Can I, can I,
I just wanted to, I'll just add quickly to your question. It's a great question. And I know I'm not talking really about cities because of where my research was, but I think this angle is important to bring in. So you're talking, what policies there already are. There's, so many if we think about it, and but not, they're not, hitting the nail on the head is the actual thing. We can talk about the financing of it in a minute, but what we haven't done is evaluate existing plans and policies in this climate narrative, in this heat narrative, that are already there. So, for example, in rural India, there's Narega I talked about, right? Narega already has within the law, it has in the sites of work, you have to have shade, you have to have water, and you can change the working hours of Narega. Like the local government has has the right to do that. Does that happen? No. In the heat action plans, and I told you Rajasthan is a rural one also, the suggestions that are given, nowhere we found them, because they're just not applicable. So what is already in play, say the midday meals in schools, okay, that's already in play in our country. Can we not think of having, we're talking about adaptation. Can we not think of having something cooling for the summer months given to children in schools? Like Chach is a big thing in Rajasthan. I mean, it doesn't, it's about smart. It's about how smart you are at thinking about policy, what can work and what can be added, as Ruhi said. How can they be connected, right? What is already there? What are the departments that work? Can they work together? So this is something that I strongly feel about, and yeah, that's one thing, is evaluate these existing plans and policies. Sorry, one other thing is don't, like, the communities themselves also know, because they know heat, they know, like, we have to work in this heat. So if you ask them, what's your local kind of indigenous way of dealing with it, or local knowledge way of dealing with it, that's something that we shouldn't take for granted, and really think about that as well and bring that into policy if possible. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks so much, Sabah.
Can I say?
Yeah, please, Nitesh,
Uh,
Jenny, go for it.
yeah. As citizens, answering to Jashvita question, I feel stronger heat stress regulation should be there. Demanding the introduction of national and regional heat stress regulations that protect workers in vulnerable sectors. And they should include legally binding limits on working hours during extreme heat, regular hydration, and safe working conditions, I feel. Access to health support. Call for workers to have access to free or affordable healthcare for heat-related illnesses, including providing regular health checks and during heat peaks. I feel improve worker representation, right? Uh, they should be support the formation of unions and workers associations, like for example, any of it, like that can negotiate better working conditions and safety measures against heat stress. That's we are advocating for with the warehouse workers. Public awareness campaigns. They should be advocate for education and awareness among workers about the risk of heat stress and how to protect themselves, including through the role of unions and community-based organizations in disseminating this knowledge. I feel these are the things that should be prioritized. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, maybe I can add to that. So I'll bring in a little bit of data that was done in Tamil Nadu recently from by University. So what they have found out is the heat wave days in Chennai from 24, it's increasing to 61 days. And by the end of 2100, end of the century, it's going to reach 186 days. And the thermal discomfort days in northern coastal regions, it's going to range from 100 to 125 days every year in the current scenario. And if we continue to do that, the current emissions are not done, uh, not stopped with, then the days are going to increase from to 200 to 300 days per year. So we have a lot of data right now, and the translation of this data into policy is the main issue. So I would like to point out, the first demand of citizens could be decentralization. That's an important issue because the heat impacts is mostly felt not in the urban regions. So always, what is an urban heat island? So urban heat island is nothing but in an urban region, there'll be so much infrastructures. It's all filled with concrete structures. So the heat builds up. So decentralization could be a good suggestion that can be done by the policy side. And when you are talking about gig workers, even in Chennai, we have so much. Even in Chennai, gig workers, we've been trying to do a lot of meetings. We even recently held a meeting with gig workers. And, they have they said their problems. And the associations themselves, they know what should be done. Now the work that should be done is translating their issues to the policy. So like you said, it's just adjusting the time and giving the support with the um, working hours. Yeah, this is what then the yes, so mostly this.
Yeah, thanks, Jenny, for that addition. Um,
Uh,
yeah,
Ruhi, can I
Just
add?
want to add. I
quickly.
just want to add here
Okay.
because what we have seen in the labor laws, right? There is nothing which mentions about hazardous about hazardous. So be it heat wave or be it if I'm working in a company which is hazardous, I do not have any protection or allowance with respect to pollution. So maybe there could be some amendment in the labor laws where we can, because you can't work in extreme heat, right? There has to be something, some guidelines to the industries and the others where this should be addressed. And number two is, as said, that all all the developmental projects has to be reviewed, and destruction of environment has to be addressed on a serious note. Like we can learn lots from Bhutan. It's a zero carbon emission country. So I think it's high time the government takes this into consideration, and maybe even a separate restoration ministry can be set up where all such issues of climate change has to be addressed on immediate priority.
Thank you so much. Lakshmi, you quickly want to add? Then we're gonna do a small round and wrap up.
Yeah, just on the question, covering major things here. Like there has been an increase in heat action plans almost all over the globe, but the primary concern in all this is how we are going to really implement it and how we are going to fund the things in this. The overall success of all the implementation actually comes down to like six considerations. If we work on that six considerations, probably the implementation and the like in there would be an increase in success of those health targets, or like heat health targets. One is obviously integrated and cross-sectoral collaborations. We need to have that uh, at most, like in every consideration, everything. Second is heat equity, where we prioritize disadvantaged neighborhoods and communities, low income groups, and indigenous populations. Uh, Third one is international cooperation. There are tested solutions present. There are alliances, there are networks where we have some solution which is implemented somewhere. We can really use that knowledge and implement that. Fourth one is data sharing and analysis, which is severely lacking in India. We don't have really open data principles in India working on heat what and like we need to work on that. That will largely help us to make very informed decisions about heat spots and other targeted interventions. Fifth one is technological innovations, where we work towards building cooling solutions, the passive building designs, particularly which are low carbon, low cost, to reduce heat related risks. And sixth one, the most important one I feel, is the community engagement part, where uh, these action plans are somewhat a very jargonish things, which we can't really understand if we don't know that jargon language. Normal people, and they don't have any kind of processes in that where communities are engaged regularly. So, in heat action planning, if we involve local communities, particularly targeted like local NGOs, it would be very efficient and helpful. Yeah, thanks.
Cool. Thank you, Lakshay. Anybody else wants to ask any question, because we are past our 1 hour mark too. You can go ahead right now. I just also wanted to add, this is something we are already chatting in the comment section here, that heat comes down to political and bureaucratic will. And the fact that we are seeing this being spoken about in silos from a very sustainable cooling, or rather solution oriented perspective, is also because the first things that affect the bureaucrats is the fact that they cannot sit in their offices probably, or they cannot function. Even politicians cannot function in a hot environment. So the first priority for them is now sustainable cooling, because that is something that directly is of priority to them. And this is something we've also heard in these political and bureaucratic spaces. But when it comes down to outdoor work, when it comes down to really mapping what do vulnerable groups actually mean, and what do we have to then do about them? I think there's still a long way to go, and I think these things are not addressed in COP, let alone talking about maintaining or not reaching the 1.5 degree mark, which has become like a very tokenistic proverb, I would say, in all climate conversations, which happen from the top down level. Because the projections say that this is something that we're going to offshoot, but what are we doing to ensure that we don't offshoot this? And what are the measures we're taking to adapt in case we do that? Our conversation's still missing, at the COP29 and like other COPs we've seen. So anybody else would like to ask another question to the panelists? Yeah, then Donal, yeah.
Yeah, we have to wrap soon. So, in case Peer Mohammed, Meena ji, Jashita, if you have anything else to add, please feel free to ask. We'll also be sharing the speaker contacts with you if you want to approach them specifically for any quotes or any stories. So, that would also be done shortly after, like maybe in the next couple of hours. We'll share all the contact details. And of course, as HAC, we would be regularly engaging on heat, stress, and related topics. So you can approach us as well if you want a specific data point or on any of these intersections as well. So yeah, any other questions or comments? All right.
Yeah, we can wrap it up.
We'll wrap up. Thank you so much to all the speakers who and spent this hour, and thank you for all the people attending. Jashvita, Meena ji, Kavya, and I think Amita and Karthikeyan were here as well. Thank you so much, and hopefully we can keep up the engagement and keep pushing for these issues beyond the news cycles, which is also the important bit for us as campaigners and advocates. So thank you so much and have a good evening. We'll be also sharing this video link with you, which you can share with your networks further. Yeah.
I've
Thank you
shared the
so
video
much.
link in the chat box, and you can like share it, review it, go back to it. And yeah, and like keep having these conversations. Hopefully by the next COP, we'd have a very detailed action plan on heat action, possibly. Yeah, let's dream big, I would say. Not in the siloized approach, hopefully, but in a purely intersectional approach where like heat does intersect with labor, gender, uh, environment, every single thing that we know it exacerbates public health. It makes it much more deadlier, and it cannot be looked as just a summer issue or a siloized issue anymore because there's probably a heat wave in some part of the world right now. So yeah.
Probably need another COP on heat only.
Yeah, probably a COP on heat, a conference of parties just on heat. So yeah, thank you so much all and lovely to see you guys all here again and hoping to speak soon. Yeah, keep in touch and keep following everything that we all do. Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Yes.
Bye.
Thank
you,
you.
guys. Thanks so
Thank
much.
you very much, Heatwave Action Coalition.
Thank you. Bye.